But what really put the doubts in our mind were doctrinal issues. I had a doctrinal issue with the other sheep. A lady at the door told me they're not an earthly class, they're the Gentiles, which made a huge difference to me. I couldn't prove her wrong. Mills had problems with the fact that the society defined the Trinity in a way that nobody believes anymore as modalism. So we were disproving a wrong doctrine when it came to the Trinity. So we had all of those doubts. But finally, by 1985, we had had enough. And there was no doubt in our mind then that the society was a false prophet. And we thought at the time we had no emotional ties to them at all. At least we thought we didn't. But the trauma came a little bit later. For Nils, it took the form of extreme frustration. His family, all on both sides of his family, were witnesses, and they cut him off when we left. And Nils was never angry at them because of that, because he knew that they were just doing what they felt was right. They were trying to please Jehovah. How can you get too angry at somebody who's trying to follow their conscience? But he did believe that out of love and respect for him, they would not just dismiss him as a hateful, filthy apostate, but they would at least listen to why he had left and listen to his reasons. And of course, they put their hands over their ears and cut him off.
And when I was 18, I was kicked out. I was disfellowshipped. Very, very difficult. I was still living at home. I was working. I was working full-time. My mother had a very limited relationship with me. My father was not a witness, so I still had a relationship with him, although we were not close at all. My brother stopped talking to me altogether, started shunning me. Of course, my cousins and my aunt and that sort of thing. And of course, you're just shunned. If you go to the store, they would turn around and go the other way. So it was a time of frustration, a time of just crying. I cry all the time. I would just go to work. I'd go party. And then I would just cry to anyone and talk to anyone who would listen, because no one else understood. So I would just talk and talk. Of course, that life got old, and I met my husband, Richard. He's sitting right there, and just a wonderful man. And he was able to put up with all my Jehovah's Witness emotional problems. He was really patient, and I know that he didn't understand where I was coming from, but you know, we dated for a year, and then we ran off to Vegas to get married. And he was just really happy because every single holiday was with his family. I didn't have to share. So he was pretty happy about that.
Of course, the heaven of the Jehovah's Witnesses doesn't sound like heaven at all. Okay, after Armageddon, you guys are going to bury dead bodies, you know, tear down irradiated cities. It sounds more like a home improvement project than heaven. So, you know, hey, what are we going to do today? Well, we're going to spend the next 42 years tearing down irradiated cities and burying these people over here. When are we going to lay down with the lion and the lamb, Mom? Well, that doesn't come up for another 150 years. But, you know, get to work, go over to Lowe's, get some power tools, you know, let's go at it. Sounds like heaven. I'm all giddy when I think of that kind of heaven.
Can I tell you something? You can't win an argument with a Jehovah's Witness. And even if you win an argument with a Jehovah's Witnesses, so what? So what have you accomplished? So you told him something that he said, oh, good deal, and he was baffled and he went home. Can I tell you what they need? They need Jesus. They're no different than Joe Schmo next door who doesn't know anything. They need to know Jesus. And I got to tell you, all those years in my life, as I knocked on doors, I never had one person say, I want to share Jesus with me. I had him slam the door in my face. I had him do all kinds of other things to me. I had dogs chase me. You know, a lot of crazy, stupid things happen. But I never had somebody say, why don't you come on in the house and sit down with me? And can I just share something with you? You're lost. See, everybody that's a Jehovah's Witness that doesn't know, they're lost. You know, they need to know that they're lost. People ask me, well, how do you witness? Here's what we did. We looked at Christianity. Why Christianity? Because here's what happens with Jehovah's Witnesses. Here's what happens with a lot of people, but it especially happens with Jehovah's Witnesses, and this is where my heart just bleeds, is when Jehovah's Witnesses leave Jehovah's Witnesses, they don't necessarily become Christians. That's right. Millions have left Jehovah's Witnesses, and they aren't Christians.
I discovered a book at the library called Combating Cult Mind Control by Stephen Hassan. And I was curious about that because I had intuitively sensed that there were certain things in the organization that were kind of cult-like. I couldn't really articulate it, I couldn't put my finger on it, but I sensed there was something wrong there, the way that the society enforces this groupthink on people, and that there's no independent thinking allowed, and that people have to just go along with what comes to them through the Watchtower studies. This really began to bother me, and so I got that book, I took it home, and when I started reading this book, my jaw just dropped open, because everything that he was writing about in this book was about other religions. Not once did he mention Jehovah's Witnesses, Watchtower organization, but I started seeing all these aspects that just fit the society to a T, and it reaffirmed a lot of things I had intuitively sensed about the organization. And so when I read that book, I knew that my days as a witness were numbered. I knew that I was going to leave the organization. I just didn't know when. But I can tell you that for me personally, you know, having my entire faith, having my entire worldview just collapse like that, it was really traumatic.
Without water, I can't make a pot. And in the Bible, we're told that the Word of God is the water to our souls. It's the water that washes us. It's the water that cleanses us. And just like I cannot make a pot without water, the Lord can't make a saint without His Word. That His Word is what changes us and molds us and shapes us and directs us. So we have to have His Word in our lives. And you know, tonight I brought a couple different pieces of clay, and I got a couple here that are pretty similar. One's obviously bigger than the other, but other than that, they're pretty similar from your vantage point. They look the same. From my vantage point, there's a huge difference. This one is soft and pliable. I can put my finger in it. This one, hard as a rock. Now, it's only been out in the air for a little while, and it's gotten hard. And you might say, well, then what are you going to do with that? Is it useless? No, all I have to do is take this lump of clay, dump it in a bucket of water for a while and soak it, and then I can reuse it and I can have something usable and moldable and shapeable. Well, for some of us, this could be our hearts.
We have Jesus assembling there at the upper room. We know the story. We're not going to go into any detail, but we do know that he said on Luke 22, 15 and 16, that he earnestly desired to eat this Passover with you.
And I'm going to mention something here. When we did this class, these words just meant so much to me. I thought about Jesus, and I don't know exactly how old he was when he realized he was the Messiah. Some people think he always knew it, whatever. Say he was about 15. That he knew he was going to be that final Passover lamb. And so every year when he celebrated that Passover, I'm sure he was thinking about that final one. And if it had been me, I would have just been sick every Passover thinking, oh my goodness, another year has gone by and I'm facing
been on
this.
Prozac.
Yeah. I'm facing this. And yet knowing what was going to happen to him, he had so much love for his followers that night he said, I have earnestly and intensely desired to eat this Passover with you. And when you think of all the things he did for them that day, and the way he talked to them, and how he washed their feet, knowing what was going to come up for him, what love he had.
Yes.